quiet garden just outside a small village, surrounded by olive trees. The sun is beginning to set, casting a warm golden light over the landscape. Jesus sits on a stone bench, his presence calm and serene. Soon, weary and troubled Father approaches him with a heavy heart. The man sits beside Jesus.
My Lord, I am lost. My family is struggling in ways I never imagined. The world's pressures, the weight of providing, and the fear of the future are too much. I can't shake off this feeling of worrying, and my heart is heavy with concern for my wife and children. I don't know how to be strong for them anymore.
Jesus faces the man with compassion.
My dear friend, the burden you carry is not one you should bear alone. I see the heaviness in your heart and the thoughts that trouble your mind. Tell me, what is it that weighs most upon you?
It's everything, Lord. The constant need to provide, the fear of insufficient, and the endless cycle of worrying and doubt. My wife is overwhelmed with anxiety, and my children, I see the fear in their eyes. They are so young, yet they feel the weight of our struggles. I try to be strong but feel like I'm failing them. The world demands so much from us. I fear it will break us.
The world indeed places many demands on its people. The pressures of society, the pursuit of wealth, and the constant comparisons to others can leave even the strongest of hearts feeling fragile. But know this, my child, society's expectations cannot define your value. The measure of a person is found in the love they give and the faith they hold.
Tears welling up in the man's eyes.
But how can I ease the pain and worrying in my mind? How can I help my family when I feel so powerless?
Placing a comforting hand on the father's shoulder.
You must remember the truth, even in the darkest times. You are never alone. I am with you always. The struggles you face, stress, anxiety, depression, are not signs of weakness, but signs that you are a human. You care deeply for your family, that love is your greatest strength.
But the pain, Lord, it feels like it will never end. The fear of what tomorrow might bring, it's overwhelming.
Jesus with a gentle smile.
Tomorrow will bring what it brings, but today is where you are. Do not let the worries of the future steal the peace of this moment. Your mind may race with what ifs, and your heart may tremble with fear. But remember this, you are not alone in this battle. I am with you, and together we will face whatever comes.
Jesus pauses, allowing the words to sink in.
The world is filled with many voices, each demanding your attention. But amidst the bustling, there is a still, small voice. My voice is calling you to rest in me. When your mind is troubled, come to me in prayer. When your heart is heavy, lay your burdens at my feet. You were never meant to carry this weight alone.
I want to believe that, Lord. I want to find peace, but it feels so far away. How do I find it when the world around me is so chaotic?
Looking deeply into the father's eyes.
Peace is not found in the absence of trouble, but in my presence amidst it. The world will always have its challenges, but your soul can be at rest if you place your trust in me. When you feel overwhelmed, please take a moment to breathe deeply and remember that I am with you. Let my love anchor your soul, holding you steady even when the storms of life rage around you.
The father slowly nodding, as if a weight has lifted from his shoulders.
But what about my family, Lord? How can I help them when they are struggling too?
Love them as I love you. Listen to their fears and worries, but do not try to fix everything alone. Bring them to me in prayer, and I will guide you. Teach your children that feeling afraid, sad, or anxious is okay. Show them that these feelings are not something to be ashamed of, but a part of being human. Let them know that they are loved, no matter what.
The father's voice softening, a new hope emerging.
And my wife, she carries so much on her shoulders. I want to be there for her, but sometimes I feel like I'm not enough.
Be her partner in this journey, not just a provider. Share your burdens and lean on me together. It is not about being perfect. It is about being present. Hold her when she cries, listen when she speaks, and pray together when the world's weight feels too heavy to bear. Remember, a family that prays stays together, and I am in your prayers.
The father sensed a deep feeling of relief.
Thank you, Lord. I feel like I can breathe again. The road ahead won't be easy, but I can face it with you.
You are never alone, my child. I am with you in every step, tear, and laugh. Let my peace guard your heart and mind, and remember, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness.
I will hold on to your words, Lord. I will trust in your presence, even in the darkest times. Thank you for reminding me that I am never alone.
Jesus smiles and cheering the father.
Go in peace, my friend. Love your family, lean on me, and know I am always with you.
As the father leaves the garden, the sun sets fully, casting a peaceful darkness over the landscape. But in the father's heart, a new light has dawned, that is the light of hope, faith, and the assurance that he can face whatever challenges with Jesus by his side.
In an age long forgotten, nestled among the emerald hills and crystalline lakes, lay the ancient and majestic kingdom of Havens. In Havens, a remarkable and kind-hearted ruler, King Jesus, resided with wisdom and compassion. He was renowned throughout the lands for his profound knowledge, boundless compassion, and the miracles that flowed like gentle streams from his hands. His kingdom thrived in peace and prosperity, a beacon of hope in a world often shrouded in darkness. Beyond the great pine forest and across the Silver River, north of Havens, lay the kingdom of Losami. Losami was a land once flourishing with vibrant fields and bustling markets, but it had fallen into despair. Its ruler, King Marcus, had fallen gravely ill, and the once lush kingdom succumbed to blight and decay. The people of Losami were sinking into hopelessness, their cries for help echoing through the lonely streets. Knowing his kingdom's only hope lay in a higher power, King Marcus summoned his most courageous and loyal prince, Feel, a young man with the heart of a lion and the spirit of a hero, had long been admired for his bravery and determination. He was carefully selected for an almost impossible mission: to seek out the wise King Jesus of Havens and implore him to help save Losami from its dire fate. With a heavy heart and a burning sense of duty, Prince Feel embarked on his journey. He rode through rugged terrains and treacherous paths, his every step guided by hope and the weight of his kingdom's fate. As days turned into weeks, Feel faced countless trials, the swirling storms, daunting mountain passes, and wild beasts that roamed the land. Yet, his resolve never wavered. The image of his ailing father and suffering people kept him moving forward. One day, as Feel traversed a particularly dense forest, his journey faced an unexpected and challenging test. Amid his path, he came upon a small, humble village plagued by its suffering. The villagers were frail and hungry, their homes in disrepair. The air reeked of desperate bitterness, filling the atmosphere with a haunting presence. Feel could see the despair etched on their faces. Despite his urgent mission, Feel knew he could not ignore the plight of these people. He approached the village elder, a frail woman named Alara, who welcomed him with weary eyes. Alara explained that the village had been ravaged by a recent drought, leaving them with almost nothing. The villagers were on the brink of starvation, their hope dwindling with each passing day. Moved by their suffering, Feel made a decision. He distributed the little food and supplies from his provisions among the villagers. He worked alongside them to repair their homes and bring normalcy back to their lives. His compassion and selflessness shone brightly, a beacon of hope in their darkest hour. As Feel labored with the villagers, He formed a bond with them, sharing stories of his mission and the distant kingdom of Havens. He inspired them with determination and a kind heart, offering comfort and encouragement. Despite his exhaustion, Fiel's spirit remained unshaken, and he found strength in knowing he had made a difference in their lives. Fiel continued his journey, with the village now slightly more hopeful and their immediate needs addressed. His heart was heavier with the burden of the kingdom he had yet to save, but lighter with the knowledge that he had done what he could. After facing a test of his compassion, he emerged with renewed determination and inner fortitude. One day, as Fiel traversed a particularly dense forest, he stumbled upon a small, hidden glade where the air seemed to shimmer with a golden light. In the center of the clearing stood a magnificent, ancient tree with roots that seemed to touch the very heart of the earth. Beneath the tree was a small, peaceful cottage, and inside, with a calm and serene presence, sat King Jesus. Fiel approached with reverence and desperation, recounting Losami's plight and imploring King Jesus to help save his kingdom. Jesus listened with compassion, his eyes reflecting both sorrow and hope.
My king, I seek your unparalleled wisdom and miracle to heal the land of your humble servants from Losame.
Jesus assured Fiel that his journey had not been in vain and that his acts of kindness had not gone unnoticed.
You are welcome, dear Prince. Your journey is remarkable, and it shows your earnest concern for your kingdom.
In a moment of profound clarity, Jesus spoke of the power of selfless love and the strength found in compassion.
My child, the key to restoration is love and hope from your people. Let your king encourage them and restore the faith that's been weakened. In this way, the land will heal and become cherished again.
Prince Fiel bowed and said,
But my lord, our king is sick, and his ailment hinders him from addressing the people.
Oh, have more faith, my child. As you return to your kingdom, your king will feel better, and you will help him address the people.
King Jesus smiled. The prince's spirit had been renewed, and he gladly said,
The people of Losami will honor you, my lord. Your wisdom and help will be celebrated.
He instructed Fiel to return to Losami with a message of hope and a promise of renewal.
Remember, my child, the kingdom's restoration relied on its people's unity and kindness to heal the land.
Fiel returned to Losami with a heart full of hope and a renewed sense of purpose. As the prince returned to the kingdom, King Marcus miraculously improved, and the queen happily said,
My son, a miracle happened this morning. Your father's health is far better now.
Mother, it was King Jesus doing. He is true to his word. Now let us gather the people. The king and I must address them.
And so, with the sight of the recovered king and the moving address of Prince Fiel to the people, the kingdom, inspired by his courage and the message from King Jesus, began to heal. The crops grew once more, the rivers flowed freely, and the people of Losami found solace in the knowledge that their suffering had led to a profound transformation. King Marcus, rejuvenated by the restoration of his kingdom, praised his brave son and the divine intervention that had brought hope back to their land. King Marcus decreed a Thanksgiving celebration to be held in honor of King Jesus. The tale of Prince Fiel's journey became a legend, a testament to the power of compassion and the enduring light of hope that can guide even the bravest souls through the darkest times.
In the quiet village of Bethsaida, nestled among the rolling hills and olive groves, there lived a family full of joy and laughter. Elias, the father, was a hard-working farmer who toiled daily in the fields, providing for his wife, Miriam, and their two children, Hannah and Levi. They had once been close, spending time together in the evenings, sharing meals and laughing around the fire as the stars twinkled above. Their home had been filled with love, like a well-tended garden bursting with life. But as time passed, life grew busier. Elias worked longer in the fields, struggling to meet harvest demands. Buried with maintaining their home, Miriam became weary and distant. Hannah and Levi, once playful and full of energy, withdrew into their worlds, preoccupied with their studies and the pressures of village life. Slowly but surely, the warmth that had once filled their home faded, leaving a feeling of emptiness behind. Elias noticed the change, but felt powerless to stop it. He believed that working harder was the only solution. He reasoned that if he could provide more for his family, perhaps the joy would return. But the more he worked, the further away his family seemed to drift. The house, once filled with love, now felt cold, like a garden neglected and overtaken by weeds. One evening, after a particularly long day in the fields, Elias sat beneath an old olive tree in the village square. His body was tired, but his heart felt even heavier. As he looked up at the fading light of the sunset, he noticed a man sitting nearby, quietly watching the world with a peaceful expression. The man's presence was calming, and Elias felt drawn to him, though he did not know why. Without fully understanding his own need, Elias approached the man. He said, his voice weary.
"Good evening, you seem at peace. I haven't felt that in a long time."
The man turned and smiled gently. He said softly,
Peace comes from within, but tell me, what burdens you?
Elias sat beside the man and, without hesitation, began to speak. He told the stranger about his family, the love they once shared, and how it had slowly disappeared. He spoke of his struggles to provide, his long hours in the field, and how distant his wife and children had become. He admitted that the more he worked to care for them, the further they drifted away. The man listened quietly, his eyes full of understanding. When Elias had finished, the man spoke again.
Your family is like a garden, Elias. Once it flourished under your care, but now it is being overtaken by the thorns of worrying and busyness. Gardens need tending, not just from one person, but all who live within them. Let me tell you a story.
Elias felt warmth in the man's words and listened intently as he began to speak. The man continued.
There was once a sower. He went out to sow seeds in a field. Some seeds fell on rocky ground, where they couldn't take root and were scorched by the sun. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. But some seeds fell on good soil and produced a rich harvest, yielding 30, 60, and even 100-fold.
Elias nodded. He had heard this parable before, but had never understood its deeper meaning. The man continued.
Your family is that soil. Elias, your home is filled with thorns, distractions, busyness, and worrying. These things choke out love and faith. But if you tend to the soil of your hearts, removing the thorns and nurturing the seeds of compassion, forgiveness, and togetherness, your family will grow strong again.
Elias felt a deep stirring in his heart. He asked,
But how? How can I bring back the love we once had?
You cannot do it alone. It will take time, patience, and faith. But with God's help, you can create an environment where love can thrive again. Start by making time for your family, speak with them, share your heart, and encourage them to do the same. Pray together and trust in God's guidance. The garden of your home will begin to bloom.
Elias felt a deep sense of peace wash over him. The man's words were simple yet profound. He knew he had been given the wisdom to heal his family. With renewed determination, Elias thanked the man and returned home. That evening, Elias gathered Miriam, Hannah, and Levi around the fire. He shared with them the conversation he had with the man in the village and the parable of the sower. He spoke from his heart, admitting how his focus on work had caused him to neglect their time together. With tears in his eyes, he asked for their forgiveness and invited them to begin anew. Miriam, touched by Elias's sincerity, reached for his hand. She said softly,
"We have all drifted, but I believe we can find our way back together."
Hannah and Levi, who had been listening quietly, nodded in agreement. Hannah said, her voice full of emotion,
"We miss how things used to be, but we can start again."
From that night forward, the family committed to one another. They began to spend more time together, sharing meals, talking openly about their struggles, and praying as a family. Elias returned home earlier from the fields, and Miriam allowed herself moments of rest. Slowly, the love and joy that had once filled their home began to return. Months later, as Elias sat again under the olive tree in the village square, he thought of the man who had shared such wisdom with him. He realized now that the man was no ordinary villager. He was Jesus, who had brought peace to his heart and healing to his home. Their home was no longer a place of sorrow, but had blossomed into a thriving garden full of love, faith, and unity. Through the simple act of tending to their hearts and trusting in God's guidance, they had found the peace they had longed for. The seeds of love had taken root in good soil, and the harvest was bountiful, producing blessings that would last for generations.
A woman named Grace Neva lived in the heart of Nork City, nestled between towering skyscrapers. She wasn't someone you'd notice on the bustling streets, a modest, quiet, and determined widow. She spent her days working in a small corner cafe, serving coffee to the hurried crowds, and her nights alone in her tiny apartment. With all its grandeur and chaos, the city moved around her like a river she couldn't entirely step into. But Grace had a fire inside her. Her late husband, Mark, had been wronged by a corrupt business tycoon, Jonathan Blums. Mark had spent his life savings investing in a real estate venture, only to lose everything when Blum's shady practices bankrupted the company. Heartbroken and financially devastated, Mark passed away, leaving Grace with nothing but memories and a determination to seek justice. Every day, Grace visited the local courthouse to plead her case. Judge Robert Mwez, known for being indifferent and harsh, presided over the district. He was known for his cold demeanor and dismissive attitude toward cases that didn't promise headlines or political advancement. Grace had already been turned away multiple times. Judge Mwez said for what felt like the 100th time,
"Mrs. Neva, there's nothing I can do. Your case lacks the evidence necessary to move forward. You're wasting my time and yours."
Grace stood her ground, her voice unwavering.
"Your Honor, Jonathan Blum stole my husband's life. I may not have a fancy lawyer or piles of money, but I have the truth. And I will keep coming back until you listen."
Persistence isn't going to change the law, Mrs. Neva. I'm sorry for your loss, but I can do nothing.
Judge Nwes sighed, leaning back in his chair. His courtroom was a well-oiled machine built on efficiency and cold logic. Without powerful backing, a case like Grace's meant nothing to him, but Grace wasn't deterred. Every day, she returned with the same fire in her eyes, the same plea on her lips. She refused to give up, no matter how often she was turned away. News of the widow's persistence spread around the courthouse, and soon, Even the judge's staff grew curious. Still, Judge Nwez remained unmoved. After yet another rejection, Grace made her way home one cold evening. As she walked, she noticed a figure standing at the entrance of a small park, bathed in the golden glow of a street lamp. The man had a gentle smile, his presence calm and welcoming, as if the noise and chaos of the city couldn't touch him. The man said, his voice soothing yet firm,
"Hello, Grace."
Do I know you?
Startled, she paused. She asked. The man smiled warmly.
"Not yet, but I've been watching you for some time. You have great faith, Grace. It's what keeps you going."
Faith in what? I keep showing up, but the judge won't listen. My husband's gone and I have nothing left. What good is faith if it doesn't change anything?
Grace furrowed her brow. The man stepped closer, his eyes filled with understanding.
Faith isn't about immediate results. It's about persistence, trust, and believing that justice will come even when it seems impossible.
Grace felt a strange comfort in his words. She asked quietly,
Who are you?
"I am Jesus."
He said. Grace blinked, unsure whether to believe him or to laugh.
Jesus, as in the Jesus?
"I've been with you this whole time, Grace. I've seen your tears, your struggles, and I'm here to tell you not to give up. Your persistence will bring justice. But you must trust in more than just your efforts. Trust in me,"
he said, his expression gentle but firm. A wave of peace washed over Grace, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time.
But the judge? He won't listen,
she said, her voice wavering. Jesus smiled again.
"Even the most unjust judge will give in if you persist long enough. But remember, Grace, it's not just the judge you're fighting. You're standing for what's right, and I am with you every step of the way."
Grace continued her visits to the courthouse with a renewed sense of purpose. Each time she entered, there was a new confidence in her stride. People noticed the change in her. It wasn't just about the case anymore, it was about her unwavering belief that justice, in whatever form, would prevail. Weeks passed, and Judge Nwez grew weary of seeing Grace's face in his courtroom. He began to realize that this woman wasn't going to back down. One evening, as he sat alone in his office, the weight of Grace's persistence pressed on him. Flipping through the pages of her case file, something about her determination stirred something inside him, something he couldn't shake. He muttered,
"If I don't give her what she wants, she'll never stop."
The following day, as Grace stood before him again, Judge Nwez did something unexpected. He cleared his throat and spoke, his voice softer than usual. He began,
"Mrs. Neva, I've reviewed your case again and decided to proceed. I can't promise you the outcome you want, but you deserve to be heard."
Grace felt her heart leap in her chest. She had done it. After months of rejection and silence, the door to justice had finally opened. But at that moment, she realized that the victory wasn't just in the judge's decision, but in her unwavering faith and refusal to give up. As Grace left the courthouse, her heart lightened, but her journey wasn't over yet. She walked through the streets of Nork City, the evening chill nipping at her skin. The glow of streetlights and the hum of the city surrounded her, but all she could feel was the warmth inside her, a quiet joy that hadn't been there in years. Justice wasn't guaranteed, but she had been heard, which was the first step. She rounded the corner near her apartment and noticed a familiar figure standing in the distance. Jesus. His presence, calm and firm, was unmistakable. He looked at her with a tender smile that seemed to hold all the answers she had been searching for. Jesus whispered, his voice like a melody in the night.
"Well done, Grace. Your faith has brought you answered prayer. I told you, Grace, justice comes when it's pursued with faith."
Grace smiled through tears that stung her cheeks in the cold.
I don't know what the future holds, but I know now that I'm not alone. Thank you.
"I will always be with you. Never doubt that,"
Jesus said, and gently smiled. With a final glance, he turned and faded into the city's shadows, leaving Grace standing in the soft glow of the street light, knowing her fight had always been guided by more than just her own will.
It was a warm Saturday morning in the small town of Willow Creek. Families were out enjoying the beautiful weather. The Perez family lived in a cozy little house near the park. Members are Tom, his wife Sarah, and their 2 kids, 12-year-old Emily and 9-year-old Jack. The family loved their small backyard garden, and it had become a project they worked on together. Tom loved teaching his kids how to care for the plants, and they spent many weekends tending to them as a family. One morning, as they gathered around the garden, Tom noticed something troubling. Weeds had started growing among the healthy plants, threatening to choke them. Frustration crossed his face as he called the kids over. Tom said,
"Emily, Jack, come here. We need to do something about these weeds. They're going to ruin everything if we don't get rid of them fast."
Emily and Jack hurried over and crouched beside their father. Jack, always the first to act, he asked,
Dad, should we pull them out now?
We should be careful. We might pull out the good plants and weeds if we're in haste.
Sarah, standing on the porch, chimed in gently. Tom scratched his head, uncertain.
But if we don't deal with the weeds right now, they could ruin the garden. I don't want all our work to go to waste.
At that moment, their neighbor, Jesus, a soft-spoken man who had recently moved into the neighborhood, happened to be walking by. Though quiet and humble, his words always conveyed deep wisdom. He had a way of showing up just when he was needed. Jesus approached the fence, smiling warmly at the family. He said gently,
"It looks like you're having some trouble with your garden."
Yeah, these weeds are popping up everywhere. We're trying to determine whether to pull them out now or wait. I don't want to make a mess of it.
Tom sighed. Jesus looked thoughtfully at the garden.
You know, this reminds me of something I once taught. Have you ever thought about the parable of the weeds among the wheat?
The family glanced at each other. Jack was hyped. His curiosity piqued.
What's that about?
It's a story about a farmer who planted good seed in his field. But while everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat. When the plants began to grow, the weeds showed up also. The farmer's workers wanted to pull the weeds out immediately, but the farmer said, "No, because while you pull the weeds, you might uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. At that time, the weeds will be collected and dealt with, and the wheat will be gathered safely."
Jesus explained, then leaned in a little closer. Emily furrowed her brow.
But why wait? Wouldn't the weeds hurt the wheat?
Jesus smiled at her question.
That's a good point, Emily, but the farmer knew that if they rushed to remove the weeds, they might damage the wheat, the good plants they work so hard to grow. So he waited for the right time. It's not about ignoring the problem. Sometimes rushing to fix things too quickly can cause more harm than good.
It sounds like a lesson in patience. Sometimes in a family, we want to fix every problem immediately, but we must be careful how we act.
Sarah nodded thoughtfully. Jesus looked at Sarah with a gentle smile.
Exactly. Family life is a lot like this garden. You're constantly planting good seeds, and those are love, patience, kindness, and watching them grow. But sometimes weeds show up. These could be misunderstandings, frustrations, or challenges that test your family's unity. It's natural to want to pull those weeds out right away, but sometimes it's better to wait. Rushing to fix every problem can accidentally hurt the growing good things, too.
So you're saying that in family life, we should be patient with our challenges and not rush to fix everything?
Tom, who had been quiet, spoke up. Jesus nodded.
Yes, exactly. When there's a disagreement or a tough moment in your family, it's tempting to act immediately and try to fix it. But taking a step back and considering the bigger picture is important. Sometimes the best thing you can do is give things time to settle. As long as you're nurturing the love and care within your family, the weeds can be dealt with when the time is right.
So, kind of like not fighting with Emily when she's annoying me?
Jack said, listening closely. Jesus chuckled softly, looking at Jack.
Yes, exactly. You may feel frustrated, but reacting too quickly or harshly might cause more hurt. Instead, remember that love and patience are stronger than any weeds that may grow.
Emily, who had been reflecting on what Jesus said, spoke up.
It's like how sometimes we have disagreements at school, and I want to fix everything immediately. But maybe giving things a little time to work out is better.
Jesus smiled, clearly pleased with the wisdom in her words.
You've got it, Emily. Families and friendships aren't perfect. There will always be weeds that try to disrupt the good things you're building. But if you nurture the love, kindness, and patience within your relationships, you'll see the good plants flourish. And when the right time comes, you'll know how to deal with the challenges without harming the good.
Thank you, Jesus. I've been so focused on fixing things right away that I forgot about being patient and letting the good take root.
Tom looked around at his family, feeling the weight of Jesus' words sink in. Jesus stood up, his warm smile never fading.
The important thing is to keep nurturing the good things in your family. Tend to the love, the care, and the patience you have for one another. Trust that the weeds will be taken care of when the time is right.
Sarah smiled at Tom and then at the kids.
It's a good reminder for us all. Family isn't about perfection, it's about growing together and trusting that the good will always outlast the bad.
Exactly. And when you love each other, you'll find that the weeds don't stand a chance.
Jesus nodded as Jesus waved goodbye and continued down the road. The Paris family stood together by the garden. They knew that life would always come with challenges, but with love, patience, and faith, they could grow through anything, just like the wheat and the garden they worked so hard to cultivate.
Life moved at its own unhurried pace in the quiet town of Pineville. The townspeople knew each other well and shared stories and laughter as they spent their days. But even in this peaceful community, some tales stirred their heart, stories that reminded them of faith, patience, and responsibility. One sunny morning, a traveler came to Pineville. His name was Jesus, and though he appeared like any other man, there was something different about him. His presence seemed to calm those around him, and people found themselves naturally drawn to his wisdom and kindness. As Jesus walked through the busy marketplace, he noticed a small group of servants who worked for a wealthy merchant named Sir Albert. These servants, Willie, Dura, and Meadow, were tasked with caring for Sir Albert's house while he was away on an extended business trip. Sir Albert had gone to the city to expand his trade, and though he trusted his servants, the length of his absence began to weigh on them. The three servants often met in the quiet corners of the town to talk about their worries. One day, they gathered behind a fruit stall, out of sight from the bustling market. Nervously rubbing the back of his neck, Willie said,
I can't help but feel anxious. What if Sir Albert comes back unexpectedly and we're not ready?
We've kept the house clean and done all the chores. There's no need to panic.
Dora replied, trying to reassure him. Meadow, the youngest of the group, looked thoughtful.
What if he returns late at night, or even next week? How will we know when to be ready? I don't want to let him down.
As they spoke, Jesus approached them with a gentle smile, his voice calm and steady. He said,
You seem troubled. Friends, what's on your minds?
The servants hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to respond. Then Willie, always the first to speak, said,
Our master, Sir Albert, left us in charge of his house while he's away. We've done our best to care for everything, but we're afraid we might not be ready when he returns.
That is a fair concern, but tell me, what does being ready mean to you?
Jesus nodded thoughtfully. Dura answered,
We've kept everything clean, prepared meals, and ensured nothing is out of place. But sometimes it feels like we're just waiting, not knowing if what we're doing will be enough.
Being ready is not just about keeping things in order. It's about having a heart that's alert and prepared for whatever may come. You don't know when your master will return, but if you remain watchful and diligent, you will be ready for him.
Jesus smiled, his eyes filled with understanding. His words resonated with the servants. The individuals were deeply engrossed in their tasks, needing to take the time to contemplate the profound significance of their work. Inspired by what Jesus said, they made a pact to stay vigilant, not out of fear, but out of love and respect for Sir Albert. That night, they returned to Sir Albert's house with renewed energy. Meadow went to the garden and carefully tended the flowers and plants, ensuring everything was perfect. Willie took over the kitchen, preparing a hearty meal that would be ready whenever Sir Albert walked through the door. Dora organized the living room and study, putting everything in its place with care and attention to detail. The days turned into weeks, and the chill of autumn soon arrived, painting the streets of Pineville in shades of red and gold. The servants kept up their watchfulness, but the uncertainty of Sir Albert's return lingered in their minds. One evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned a deep shade of purple, Jesus revisited them. He found them sitting together in the living room, sharing stories from their day and laughing as they prepared for another night of waiting.
It's good to see you all. How have you been?
Jesus greeted everyone warmly as he entered the room.
We've been working hard. The house is in perfect condition, and we're prepared for Sir Albert's return.
Meadow replied eagerly. Then Willie nodded but added,
Still, it's hard not to wonder when he'll return. The waiting feels endless sometimes.
Jesus sat down with them and smiled.
Waiting can be difficult, but it's not wasted time. In your waiting, you've grown stronger and more united. It's not just about keeping the house ready for Sir Albert. It's about how you've supported one another through this journey.
The servants thought about this and realized how their bond had deepened over the past weeks. They had become not just workers under the same roof, but friends who cared for one another. The waiting had shaped them in ways they hadn't expected. As they reflected on this, a loud commotion came from outside. The sound of horses galloping down the main road echoed through the house. The servants rushed to the window and saw a group of riders approaching quickly. Leading them was Sir Albert, his familiar face worn from travel, but full of excitement. Dura exclaimed, her heart racing.
He's back.
The servants made their final preparations in a flurry of activity. Willie hurried to finish the meal. Dura straightened the cushions and tidied up the room, and Meadow checked the garden one last time. The door swung open, and Sir Albert entered the house, looking around wide-eyed. He said, his voice filled with relief and joy.
I'm home. I've missed this place.
The servants gathered around him, each beaming with pride. Meadow said,
We've been waiting for you. Everything is ready.
Sir Albert looked around, taking in the spotless home and the delicious aromas from the kitchen. He turned to his servants, gratitude in his eyes.
You've done an amazing job. I couldn't have asked for better care while I was away.
Your servants have been faithful, not just in their work, but in their hearts. They've kept watch over your home, and in doing so, they've grown into a family.
Jesus chimed in, who had quietly observed the reunion, stepped forward. Sir Albert nodded in agreement, his heart swelling with appreciation.
I see that now. Jesus, my best friend, you've been teaching them. They've not only kept the house in order, but have also taken care of each other.
As the evening wore on, the house filled with laughter, warmth, and stories of Sir Albert's travels. Now, more than ever, the servants felt the deep satisfaction from their watchfulness and care. Ultimately, they realized that their faithfulness during the waiting had transformed them. They had learned that the valid reward wasn't just in the moment of Sir Albert's return, but in the bonds they had formed along the way. And so, the story of the watchful servants spread through Pineville, a reminder to all that the most extraordinary adventures often come in the waiting, and that vigilance, faith, and friendship are treasures worth cultivating.